Okay, well, Mark already told you what we're going to be talking about today. And so I'm going to start my screen sharing. And I'm really glad that Marv is going to be talking about scripture accessibility next week. Last time, if you remember, Sean was teaching about USFM Converter. And I feel like USFM Converter and scripture accessibility are two good bookends for the talk that I'm giving today. If you know what bookends are, they're things that you put on one end and on the other end of a row of books so that they don't fall over. And so Sean's talk and Marv's talk are going to help my talk not fall over. Um, Today we're talking about BTT Writer again. And specifically, what we're talking about is how do we get information out of BTT Writer? After we've typed the translation into BTT Writer, how do we get it out so that other people can use it, so that it's safe, and so on? There's a word that we use to describe all of that process, and that word is export. And here I am in a project. It's a Kalamse language. And if I come over here to the menu right here, and I click on that, you can see that I have an option here that says upload and export. If I click on that, one of the interesting things is export to PDF file. The reason I say that that's interesting is if I just come to the menu, there's also a print option. But the print option is actually exactly the same as the export to PDF file option. I'm also going to go back to the home screen now. And when I click on the details button for the project, you can see down here there's an upload export arrow and there's a little printer. If I click on the upload export arrow, I get the same options that I had when I was in the project. And again, I have export to PDF file, but I can also click on the print, which does exactly the same thing. So if your goal is to make a printout, you can skip a step by not going through the upload export option. You can just go directly to the print option. So that's what I'm going to talk about first, and then we'll talk about some of the other options. When I click on the print or export to PDF, I'm given this little menu that asks me some things about what I want the output to look like. The first option here is to include incomplete chunks. So what's an incomplete chunk? An incomplete chunk is one that doesn't have the little slider clicked to say this chunk is complete. It has text in it. The verse markers may even be placed correctly, but it hasn't been closed. This option will print those chunks as long as there is something in them. So for example, if you have a whole chapter that nothing has been typed, it won't print that chapter as blank pages. You don't need to worry about wasting paper that way. But it will, if there's any text in a chunk that hasn't been closed, this option will make sure that that text is included when it's printed. On the other hand, if you say, no, I only want everything that has passed through all 8 steps of MAST, I only want the chunks that are complete, you can uncheck that, and then those chunks will be skipped when it prints. The second option here is to double space the text. I think this has different names in different cultures, but here in America, when we say we're double spacing the text, what that means is that for every line of text, there's a blank line after it. And so there's an equal amount of white space on the page as for the text. The reason that you might want to do this is if you're going to be printing this for the translators so that they can go line by line and check the translation. The white space gives them space to write in corrections or suggestions. And so that's why we have that option for you. The third option here, for many of you, is going to sound like a silly option. Fully justify text. Here in the United States, when we print text, usually the left side of the text is flat and the right side is ragged, or it just ends where the words end for that line. I know that in most of the world, you prefer your text to be flat on both sides. Well, this option will do that. It will make it flat on both sides. And we had to add it as an option because the software was made by Americans and we didn't think about that when we first made it. Okay, the fourth option here, new page for each chapter. Again, if you're handing this back to translators so that they can check their work, usually one translator does one chapter and another translator does a different chapter. So you don't want to have one page that is needed by two different translators. When we put each chapter on a new page, then each chapter will be able to be separated from the rest of the book so that you can give it to the translator to work on. And then the last option here, language and book title on each page. Again, this is something that we didn't think about at first, but it's actually very, very important because when you are printing, especially if you have an event with several different languages, you might get a page that's got a page number on it, but you don't know which chapter it is. Maybe you don't know which book it is, and you may not even know which language it's for, especially if the languages are similar. And so if you check this option, then when the PDF is made, it will have the language name and the name of the book on each page so that you can sort it easily. So now that I've got my options set, let's create a preview. I just click on the preview button there, and here it is. So I can see this is a Kalamse language book. It's a regular translation, not ULB. So this is not a gateway language. And their name for Matthew is Matteo. We have the English license information. Right now, well, actually, let me take that back. I think we might have the license information for each of the languages that BTT Writer now supports. That's part of the localization process. We don't yet have it for every gateway language. And then, so here at the top of the page, you can see it has the language name and the book name, and then it says chapter 1. And then this dotted line represents a page break. There's the language name, the book name, chapter 2, and so on. Okay, well, I'm not done yet. Now I need to save to PDF. So this is just a preview. If I stop here, I'm not going to be able to print anything. But I'm going to click Save to PDF. Now, one thing I want you to notice is where it's going to save this. You can see the automatic backups folder. You can see the backups folder. There's some other folders because I've done some work in there. This is the BTT Writer folder that's in my user account. So this is not the one on the data path. This is the one that's on the backup path in BTT Writer. And the reason that's important is if I click save down here, and then I don't know where the file is, well, I'm going to have to go through the process again. I'm actually going to save this to my desktop. And here is my PDF. So if I double click on the PDF, here we are. You can see, oh, okay, I did it twice. My computer's apparently a little slow today. So I have a title page. I have the license information. And then each chapter starts on its own page. So here, chapter 10 is too long for one page, but we still start chapter 11 on a new page. I did not do the double spacing. If I double spaced, of course, I would use twice as many pages, or at least roughly twice as many pages. Okay, some of you are going to look at this and you're going to say, that's not what I want my print to look like. I want my print to have two columns. I want my print to, do some other things that I'm not showing you here. And that's actually some of what Marv is going to talk about next week. That next week, Marv is going to talk about the ways that we can print a Bible that looks more like what a Bible looks like. In some cultures, what I just showed you would be perfectly fine, and we could take that and we could print it and we could distribute it. That's also good. But the purpose for the print option in BTT Writer is really to help with the checking process rather than for the publishing process. Okay, so what if I want to publish the project? Well, last week, Sean showed you USFM Converter. And although USFM Converter can work with a project that's in BTT Writer, you can also export your project to USFM as one of these export options. So again, I came to the details dot and I clicked on the up arrow for export. And just a reminder, if I open the project, I can also go to the hamburger menu here, upload export, and I get the same options. So when I export to USFM, again, it asks me where I want it saved. Again, it defaults to my backup path. And I have to. Okay, I've exported that into USFM. This time I didn't put it on the desktop because I wasn't thinking clearly. So here's my BTT Writer folder. And I think it went into automatic backups. Maybe not. Well, this is a good way to show how if you don't see where it goes, you have to do it again. So I'm going to export to USFM again, and this time I'm going to export it to my desktop so I know where it goes. Okay, so here's my USFM file that I just exported. If I open it, I'm going to want to open it with a text editor. As you can see, this doesn't look exactly like what we're going to want when we print. But using USFM Converter, I can convert this into a Word document that I can format any way I want to. So that's also something that we can use to export so that we have something ready for some of the things that Marv is going to show you next week. The only other time that we export to USFM is when we're trying to move a project to a different translation software, like Paratext, that inside what we call our ecosystem, or the tools that WA uses, we don't use the USFM format by itself. We always use it in the context of a project file or something like that. So let's talk about a project file. I'm going to go to the Upload and Export menu again and export to project file. So you can see I've done the PDF, I've done the USFM. This is the project file export. Again, it takes me to my BTT Writer folder. This time it actually puts me inside the backups folder to export this project file. I'm going to put it on my desktop again because that works better for me for this demonstration.
Hey, John, if there's a way
Yeah.
you can make your folder a little bigger, some people using a phone, it's kind of small to see directories.
Okay.
Thanks.
I don't know if I can do that on the fly. Um, is that better?
That looks good. Thank you. If that's if you can work with that. If not, we'll have to
Well,
figure out something
it's
for
only
next
for
week.
a moment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click on desktop here, and actually, let me cancel that. So for some reason, okay, yeah. It was picking the name of the first project here, and so that was actually going to change the name of my project file when I saved it. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to save it to the desktop here. And we save. And I've already exported that one. I'm going to replace it. Okay. My project has been successfully saved. So let's go and take a look at what that looks like. Can't move it on my screen. Okay. Now, because I'm using Linux, my computer recognizes that a TStudio file is actually an archive. You can see it looks kind of like a cardboard box. On Windows, Windows doesn't recognize it as that, and I don't remember if Mac OS does. But all a project file is a zip file that has a little bit of extra information added to it so that we can keep track of um, what's gone into this project, who the translators are, how much progress they've made, how complete it is, and so on. So these are the three different ways that we can export from BTT Writer. But there is one more option on the export menu. So you can see up here on the top, I've got a, let's zoom in. On the top, I've got a PDF. In the middle, I have a TStudio file, which is a project file. And then on the bottom, I've got a USFM export. So what happens now if I export to an upload? Well, because I'm logged in to my account, hopefully what's happening is that this is uploading to my account on Wax using the internet. All of the other export options don't use the internet, but this one does because that's where Wax is. So I'm uploading the project. Hopefully we're not getting any errors here. Okay, I got an error. It tells me that there's no space left in Wax. That sounds like something that I'm going to need to talk to my friends in the developer team about, because I don't think we're out of space in Wax. If I'm going to send this message to the help desk, which is me, I'm going to want to make sure that I get the whole message here. This is actually one of the changes in version 1.4 of BTT Writer. In earlier versions of BTT Writer, it would make a square that was kind of this big, and so you wouldn't get the whole message. The other way that you can get the whole message is by opening the developer tools. On Linux and Windows, that's Control-Shift-I. On Mac OS, it's Command-Shift-I. And when I open the developer tools, I can see here, here's that error message I got when my upload failed. And so I can also copy it from here if I'm using an older version of BTT Writer and for some reason I can't upgrade to version 1.4. So what does it do when we upload to Wax? When we upload to Wax, it takes all of the information that would be normally in a TStudio project file, and it uploads that information to the Wycliffe Associates content server. Then another member of the team can download it from there to their computer in BTT Writer, or you can download it again on a different computer. Also, it makes it eventually available in a Bible in every language. There are some things that have to be done before it will appear on Bible in every language, but it has to be uploaded to Wax before it can. So those are the upload and export options. I'm going to go through them quickly once again. Upload and export gives us the option to print to a PDF file, to export to USFM in order to use USFM Converter or PTX Print or another program like that. Export to a project file to transfer a project from one computer to another, maybe using a USB drive, or you could even send it using WhatsApp. And then upload to server uploads directly to the Wycliffe Associates content server, or WAX. And that's what we want you to do when you're working on a project at least every day. And maybe even more often if you have a good stable internet connection. One of the nice things about the upload to server option is that if you've already uploaded part of the book, it won't upload the whole thing. It'll only upload the parts that you've added. And so it doesn't really take any more internet to upload often than it does to upload when you're done with the whole book. So those are the export and upload options. Do we have any questions today?
I have a question.
Okay, Tome, I see your hand. You're muted right now.
All right. For example, when I intended to export it through USFM and I mistakenly click on export to the or upload to the server and it went successfully and the project wasn't complete, how can I be able to retrieve that back?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you for that. There's two parts to your question. The first is when you were trying to export to USFM. Now, you didn't explain why you were exporting to USFM. We'll leave that part aside. But you accidentally clicked on upload to server. The good news is you can just now export to USFM and it will work correctly. You did not remove the project from your computer when you uploaded it. Okay, so the second part of your question is how can you retrieve it? Well, there's two ways. First, as I said, you still have the project on your computer. You can continue to work on it until it is complete. When you upload again, it will put those two pieces together on the server. And so there is really no need to retrieve it unless there's another problem. So what if you export to USFM, but you actually upload to the server, and then you delete the project? Now, again, I don't know why you would do that. The USFM format does not contain all of the information about the project that we like to keep. But if that happened, the way that you can recover the project from Wax is by going to the home screen. And on the home screen, use the hamburger menu and choose Import. And the top option there is Import from Server. Now, this is going to take a long time because I have a lot of projects in my account on Wax. And so we're just going to have to be patient while it looks through all of my projects on Wax. I have around 300, 400 projects. Okay. So these are the projects that are in my account. And if I wanted to download one of them, I could start typing the name of the project, starting with the language code. And again, I have a lot of projects, so it's taking a long time to filter. And you can see here, it's filtering down to the English demo projects in my account. And so if I select one of those, it's going to download it to my computer. And I have retrieved it. So here's the First Thessalonians English demo project from my account. I can also download from someone else's account. And so what I have to do when I'm going to do that is I have to remove the username from the left side. Now, if you're using tablets instead of computers, if you're using Android, the username starts off blank. And so then it's a little bit easier to do this. And so now if I look for English demo projects, it finds me projects that are in other accounts as well. And so if you put in, or if I put in your username, Tome, I would be able to find the project that you had uploaded, and then I could download it to my computer to continue working on it. Similarly, when I export a project file, I can import that project file back to my computer or to another computer. When I export a USFM file, I can import it again. But again, some information is lost when we export to USFM and then import to USFM. I think the important thing to realize is that if you upload to server, you don't lose anything, but you gain a safe backup in our server in Orlando. And so I encourage you to upload to server as often as you can, because when that happens, we are making sure that the work that has already been done won't be lost. And there are a lot of ways to lose translation work. One of our technicians had a thumb drive around his neck on a cord with all of the work from a workshop. I think there were 5 or 6 languages. He was riding on the bus and he fell asleep and someone took the thumb drive. He lost all of the work because it was not uploaded. We've had other computers that crash or are stolen. When I was in DRC many years ago, we had a computer that was completely infested with termites. And so they made it inoperable. And so there's many ways to lose translation data. And we know that we have an enemy who wants us to lose our translation data. And so one of the things that we encourage all of our technicians to do is to upload as often as you can, because once it's uploaded, it will be safe. If I just deleted a project off of my computer, if it's uploaded, it's safe. So that was a good question, Tome.
John, we have another
Yes,
question
sir.
for Benjamin.
Okay, Benjamin.
Yes, Peter Thomas. Here to I would like just to see, I think, is it necessary for us to upload often after we are done with certain chapter of the book? Because it's like previously what we have been doing here is like we type the whole book until we are complete before we upload. But I have heard any explanation that you can do it often.
Okay, your audio is a little bit fuzzy in my ears, so I'm not sure if I understood, but I'm going to say the question again so that you can tell me if I'm understanding. What I heard is that previously you were encouraged to wait until the book was complete before you upload.
Yes.
Is that correct? And now I'm telling you upload often.
Yes.
Yes. So the reason we encourage uploading often is because as soon as you upload, that work is safe. Okay, as soon as you upload, that work is safe. And then when you add more work and you upload again, now that work is also safe. And as I mentioned earlier, when you upload to a project that you've already uploaded before, it does not upload everything. It only uploads the changes. And so you are not using much more data to upload in 3 times or 6 times or 12 times than to upload the whole book at once. But if say you're in Matthew, which has 28 chapters, and you finish chapter 6 and you say, okay, I'm going to sleep now, or I'm going to go eat, and I will upload when I come back. And while you are gone, someone steals the computer, or maybe your child plays on the computer and deletes the project, or something like this. Oh, now all of that work is lost. But if you upload before you go away from the computer, now it is safe in the cloud. It is safe in Wax. And so even if something happens to your computer, the work that you have already done is safe. And as I just showed, you can download it again to start the work again with what you already finished. So that's why we encourage you to upload. If you have internet where you are working, I would upload after every chapter. One of the things that we talk about in our in-person training is we have a spreadsheet that we use to track progress. And using that spreadsheet, you can say, okay, I've uploaded this many chapters. Now I've uploaded a few more chapters. Now I've uploaded all of the chapters. And it's a way for you to track the progress. And again, the main thing is we want nothing to be lost.
That's great.
Okay. Did that answer the question properly?
Yeah, that's right. Because we have made something different from what we previously understood.
Yes. And that's, of course, why we're having this training, is because as time goes by, we discover new ways of doing the work and maybe better ways of doing it, so that we can more efficiently finish the task of getting the Bible to everybody who needs it. Are there any other questions?
Christian had a question talking about demo 1. The English language is no longer enabled.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So this was a decision by Translation Services. There have been a few changes in our infrastructure in the last few months. One of the changes is where we store the language codes. And so if you are still using an older version of BTT Writer, you are not going to be able to update your language codes because the place where they are stored has changed. The second thing that changed there is that Translation Services now directly controls the language codes. And they made a decision that the language codes should only be for languages that actually exist or need Bible translation. Well, English demo is not a real language. And so they decided that the demo codes should be removed. So what do we do now? Well, it is true that we only use those demo codes when we are practicing, or when we are at a project that does not have a code. However, if you go to a place and they don't have a code for their language yet, you should really talk with the project manager and say, this is not right. That the language code should have been selected before the project began. And so hopefully that won't happen. However, if you come to a situation where you have to put in a code and the code that you want does not exist, But you don't want to use another language's code because that's going to be confusing. We encourage you to use a sign language code. The reason we encourage the use of the sign language codes is this. Sign language, as you probably know, is a language that is communicated using gestures and motions. It is not written. And so if you use a sign language code for your project, we will know that that's not the real code for that language. And so it's either a demonstration or it is a project that's waiting for the correct code. So here you can see on my screen, I have two projects that are using the Icelandic Sign Language for their language code, which is ICL. And so when I use ICL, I know this is not a real project. I can make changes to this and I don't have to worry about messing up somebody's actual language project. So, Christian, thank you for that question. It was something that those of us in Tech Advance were also concerned about. Yes, so you can use ICL for teaching and practice, and there are actually several sign language codes. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find them. If you go to Bible in Every Language, I think you can find them there. All right, Benjamin, keep asking you to update the language code. I'm not sure I understand the question.
It's like what happened. There is one of the longest, the really longest that we trained in Namibia. Are you getting me? There is a new language that we trained in Namibia. What happens is that whenever they are done with the book and they would like to start a new book, what happens is that the computer, whenever it opens a new book, it has to ask them to update the language.
Oh, okay. I think I understand. Yes. So the way BTT Writer works, every time you create a new project, it asks you, what language is this project?
Yes.
And so, yes, every time you start a new project, you have to put in the code for that project. So, like, for example, we were talking about Icelandic Sign Language. I need to add this before I can make a new project book. I don't need to update the codes, but I do need to put in the code for each book.
Maybe the origin, what happens with them, whenever you type the code of the language and the space where you're typing, it doesn't come. So you have to update maybe before it, you have to update the language before it will be able to appear on the language list.
Okay, I'm not hearing a lot of that, so I apologize if I'm misunderstanding. The language codes in BTT Writer are updated every time there's a new version of BTT Writer. So if you have the newest version of BTT Writer, you will have new language codes that were not out before that came out. But they also update the language codes whenever they need a new one. So for example, I got an email a couple of weeks ago that there was a language that the code they were using was not for their language. It was for an old version of the language that is not spoken anymore. And so Translation Services created a new code for that language. Now, there is not a new version of BTT Writer since they added that language code. And so the code is not in BTT Writer right now. So for that, I go to my hamburger menu, I go to Update, and I update my list of available target languages. Now, I will be able to add that new code to my list of languages. So 61 languages were added since the last time I updated my language codes. But if I do it again, it will be 0, because right now I have all of the language codes that are available. And so if you've been working with a language and you have the code, you do not need to update your codes again, because you already have the code for the language that you're working with. The only time you will need it is if I come here and I say, okay, I want a language that the code is ENQ, what's it? Okay, I don't see that, but the project manager tells me, yes, that's the code. Okay, now I'm going to go and update my codes to see if I can add it that way. The only time I need to update my language codes is when I try to make a new project and BTT Writer does not recognize the code that I'm using. If BTT Writer knows my code, so ICL, then I don't need to update my language codes.
Okay. Because why I asked the question, it's like after the training we updated the language. Then in the recent month, after they completed the translation of the book, they told me they could not find their language on the list. So I have to direct them to update their language. After they updated their language, when they finished, they still asked me, no, we forgot how you directed us to update the language. Then I would like to know what happens if the BTT Writer is not keeping the languages that it updates.
The only thing that I can think is that they must be deleting it and reinstalling, or maybe they're even installing an old version of BTT Writer. Because once I update the languages, it saves it in a file on my computer. And so, because this is someone who was talking to you and now you are talking to me, I cannot examine the computer to find out what's going on. I will show you one other element here. So when you search by name, sometimes you will find many different languages that look very similar. So, oh, look, we have Kara Tanzania, we have Kara Masaraka, we have Kara Papua New Guinea, we have Kara Central African Republic. If they're looking for Kara, they may not find their language. But if they search by the code will always lead them to the correct language. And it may not say here what they call it. What it says here may be different from what they call their language. But if the code is correct, that's something that we can correct later. But once we've updated the languages in BTT Writer, the list will be correct. And that language that was added will stay added in the future. Now, if they start working on a new language, maybe that code won't be there. It's also possible maybe they have a virus that is deleting files from their computer. But yeah, once a language code is added to BTT Writer, it stays in BTT Writer until it's deleted by the person, and that's not easy to do. It's probably easier on Android, but yeah. So, do they speak English or French? The people that you're supporting?
They speak English.
Okay. So the next time they have that question, maybe you can give them my contact in Telegram or in email, and I can work with them directly to find out what the problem is.
Okay, I'll see once they will experience.
Okay.
Because since the last time they haven't contacted me.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like a strange problem. The only thing I can think is that maybe either they're not understanding what they're doing, or they're not explaining it well to you what is happening.
Yes, because even me, I was wondering. Because while we were in
Yeah.
the workshop, I knew it was a new language.
Yeah.
We have to update the language, and we left them
Yeah.
typing. Then after typing, after they finished, they told me, no, we are not getting the language. We are not getting the language code on the list of the language. So I was wondering. I have to direct them on how to update. The problem is, yeah, we have people that are who are just getting the computer,
Yeah.
working with the computer. Yeah, so it takes
Well,
time before they understand.
yeah. And so, I mean, the other answer is yes, update list of target languages. That's the answer that we have.
Yes.
And if that's not exactly what they need, well, probably best for you to have them contact the help desk, which is me and Chuck and Mark, and we can direct them. And then if you are included on that communication, we can also help explain what the problem was that they were having, so that you'll be able to help them in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left in our time slot. Are there any other questions? Okay, Mark has put the link in the chat that you need to go to fill out your attendance at this session. Even if you're watching this on a recording, you can go to ihadi.org/zoom-tech-training-week-6. I'm not sure how easy it is to see the chat if you're watching the video.
There'll be an email.
It'll be in the email also. Okay.
Yes, and in once the video is uploaded, the form will there'll be a link to the form right next to that. So right now we have all videos of week 1 through 5, along with the link to the form.
Okay. All right. So next week, Marv is going to tell you how to do better looking printing than what I did this week. Or maybe he's going to focus on making a Android app for the Bible. But anyway, he's going to be talking about some of the ways that we can get translated scripture into people's hands. And the training that we're doing in this 12-week program is only a little tiny piece of the training that we do when we are in person. And so for those of you who are going to be joining us in Kenya in August, don't worry, we will have a lot of your other questions answered then. I will stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thank you, John. I appreciate the full hour of training and answering questions. It was very good. I want to remind everyone of the link. Yeah, the link for this training is the same for this week. So just to let you know, in a couple hours, I'll upload the video of this training, and I will send you an email with that information. On Friday, I will send you a reminder. I promise I will not. I will try not to make any mistakes sending you emails and keep on writing to you throughout the weekend. But there is going to be some links that for Marv's training that he'll want you to download certain things, and we'll find out what those things are. It might be a program, it might be a file, but please try to do that prior to next week's training, week 7, and
And let me answer Samuel David's question here
okay.
before we stop. So his question is, some of the BTT Writer for Android and Windows are not compatible with the operating system. So, I mean, obviously there are some old versions of Windows or maybe Android that cannot run new programs. The version of Windows that we know is version 10 or 11 that works with our new versions of BTT Writer. For Android, I think we support version 8 and newer. The link that I put in the chat, basictranslationtools.org, has downloads for all of the current versions of BTT Writer. The current version for Android and desktop is 1.4.0. And it's possible that when you download that on Windows, Windows will say, oh, this program can't run. That's not a problem with BTT Writer. That's a problem with Windows. But if you, I don't remember, it's down on the left. You can say, I want to install it anyway. It will install and it will run correctly. It's a security thing in Windows that they don't like BTT Writer because we have not paid for a certificate. I believe the developer team is working on what would be involved in buying a certificate so that we can avoid that problem. But if you see that message, don't be alarmed and go ahead and install. And then the other comment that I have to make for Android is the version that is on the Play Store is very, very old. The version of BTT Writer on the Play Store is very, very old, and we do not recommend you use it. Use the version that's at basictranslationtools.org. And again, if Android OS says, no, I won't let you install this, you can override that and say, but I want to install it, and then it will give you permission. So, but version 1.4.0 is the most recent version of BTT Writer. All right, thank you for your good questions. Remember, you don't have to ask your questions during this time. You can email helpdesk@techadvancement.com. And we also have a Telegram chat where you can ask questions. And we also have a website, techadvancement.com, where there are links to our Telegram channel. There are links to the help desk. And there are a few mostly old and outdated articles on how to do things. So thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you all next week.